So I've been here this is my fourth day. So I've been really enjoying having wonderful experience in the United States in the monastic community. And yesterday and the previous day, I have the opportunity to share some experience with you. And so yeah, as Venerable said, we met a long time ago, and you have seems like special karmic connections are there, even though we haven't formally met, but we are appearing in the same photos and videos, and without noticing. So after looking at some internet, oh, here you are. It's just kind of interesting things are happening. It's like I think we met a little before that too, but 95 or 6, somewhere there. So I remember really clearly that you gave me the book, What Colors in Your Mind. And the place, it was in Dharamsala, just below Cherner House, like a few minutes walk from the His Holiness Dalai Lama residence. And, we keep, meeting again, like when we have His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaching. Last year we were Papa Vintashalumbu during the final year Lamrim teaching, the Changchu Lamrim teaching, and then another time, a few times, and then in December last year, right? In December in 2016, when we had the formal, what do you call it, the Geshe Ma or Geshe, whichever is easier, it's fine. In a way, it's like a first time in Tibetan Buddhist history, and had this inauguration that His Holiness really wanted to celebrate in Debung in South India. So we met again, and we had the wonderful moment that having like a lunch together with His Holiness, right? And we had the really good, listening, talking, taking photos. It was in South India, and in Debung, you may all know where it is one of the biggest monastery in the Gelugpa tradition, and it was the occasion that the 600-year founding anniversary of Debung Monastery. And His Holiness really wanted to celebrate that, like make this really history. And in the last year, in 2016, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was actually traveling in Ladakh, where I'm coming from, and he was there like more than a month. And I was there attending all the teachings and events and visiting different nunneries and schools. And 3-4 occasions he was mentioning that I'm really happy that I'm going to give the graduation and degree for the nuns, and for the first time in Tibetan Buddhist history. And I'll save that for South India, and I'm going to travel to South India in December, and I wanted to do that. And that was wonderful that I was really happy, and personally I feel really, really happy that, like Venerable Tenzin and Karmalisha Somo, the founder of our nunnery, and another nun from Germany, Champa, and long-time friends, and not only just like a friend, but you have been really supportive for the nuns' education, empowering, educating, and it was wonderful moment, right? In a way, it looks like everybody is a little kind of emotional. I can see that, right? And anyway, it really make history in a way. And some people say it's a milestone or something. I don't know what exactly that means, but it was really wonderful. So today I'm here, and thank you so much for Venerable Chodonla, and Tamjula has been working coordinating Mother to booking tickets. I was in California for 2.5 months on exchange program, and then I wanted to go to visit a few friends. I didn't really make any plan before until I reached here, and I just made the plan up to California. But after that, I'll sort it out when you get there. And then I just happened to contact her Venerable Chodonla. I'm here, and she said, "You surprised me. What are you doing here?" Right? Well, I'm just trying to learn some new things here, improving my English at the same time, just offering little short sort of a meditation, introduction meditation, like once in a week. And she said, would you love to come to here to visit? Oh yeah, I will. And then we will figure it out. And Tamju did a wonderful job to booking all the tickets. So thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoy here, and it's really, really good community. So I really pray for the future that you will continue your work. And I've been visiting on your website and reading and listening. So today I'm supposed to share with all of you the topic, which is what was that? Loving kindness and compassion in our. What does loving kindness and compassion in our daily life, right? So let me try what I can do, and it's really important topics. I think everybody sees, right? What does loving kindness and compassion means. But I know that all of you have been practicing Buddhist teaching, and you have much more knowledge than me. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you do have that. But then maybe I'm just a new visitor, so I could share what what does it mean for me. So maybe slightly different experience or exactly the same. As a human being, we may have the same sharing, right? What does loving kindness and compassion mean? And what does that mean? And if you think about it, well, sometimes quite easy, but then if you dig little deeper, meaning, it's quite difficult sometimes too, right? Just to understand the meaning itself and then putting into practice in daily life is also quite difficult. But everybody love it, right? So as a human, not only just human, but even animals, they seek love, compassion, and kindness. You can tell that like a dog or a cat. If we threaten them and they run away from us, right? So if you be very gentle and compassionate toward them and love them and like pat them and feed them or to give bath them, they will be really friendly with us. So, what does it mean? So, like, it means something really positive for the animals. So, it means much more than for us, right? As a human being, we consider that we have special kind of mental capacity. In in our tradition or in Buddhist philosophical tradition, when you say like every living beings have the seed of compassion and wisdom, and then how could you really cultivate that? How could you really increase that and make more active compassion in action or loving kindness in action? So that's the most important things. And then what does it means that you have the seed in there? We have in our mind stream, I guess, like the potential is by nature. We're born with it. Nobody gave us, I guess. It came from like beginningless, and our mind have the capacity to that, expand our loving kindness and compassion to others, and but not only just others, but ourselves as well. And how can you really compassionate and loving kindness for yourself? How can you do that? And when you're in trouble, or any kind of uneasy or unrest sort of things going on inside, probably just for your wisdom, check with yourself why this is going on with me. It's something that caused me kind of mentally distracting, and why, because if you analyze that why this is happening, you can find the cause, what is going on, probably externally, probably internally. Then, well, that's not really the right thing to happen. And eventually, if you check really carefully, any disturbing mind that occurring within ourselves is created by ourselves. Usually, we create ourselves. How do we really create ourselves? Maybe we we motivate like maybe me or mine or egoistic mind. And if something going on here, if something that unfavorable thing that happened to you, you think that's not mine. And we call this one is like self-cherishing mind. If you cherish too much yourself, and then it causes more kind of trouble and doubts and any sort of it's like really narrow ourselves and just make kind of wall between our just big kind of wall for ourselves, and that do not really let us to see the world. So that really gives suffering for yourself, and you have to be compassionate for ourselves, and then when you say compassionate to ourselves, compassion, it means compassion itself. It means like the to free from suffering oneself as well as others. It's a mental, capacities, or the one of the mental factors in Buddhist mind and awareness mentioned. Compassion means like in the mental factor that wish any living beings free from suffering. So the suffering that we are self, experiencing, or the others. So just only praying doesn't help. Of course, yeah, it helps when we pray, and there's some outrageous sort of problem or suffering or distraction going on out there, and sometimes it's like beyond our capacity or beyond our power, and we can't really do much. And even though you try, you can't really do much. At that point, I think we pray for the Buddha or any like a refuge object that you take. You don't necessarily have to be Buddha. You could pray for the Christ, or you could pray for Muhammad, or you could pray for Shiva. I mean, all major religion in the world, right? We share loving kindness, compassion, tolerance, mutual understanding. It's universal. What do you call it? It's universal kind of values. And then, from the religious scripture provide us some guideline how to expand that. So how to really cultivate furthermore and how to apply into your daily life. And, when you say daily life, so you can be anywhere, right? Traveling in train or flying or eating or cooking anytime if you face some kind of difficulties or uneasy or anything, if you just mindfully practice that values, it will increase furthermore. So it is really, really universal, and it's really, really important topics. And I'm I'm kind of brave to picking up that topic. It's not easy to explain. Also, it's not easy to explain because I do not really have that much kind of compassionate and loving kindness attitude in myself, and how can I really share that? But I've been studying for a long time, and I receive a lot of teaching from His Holiness the Lama mainly, and many other lamas, and then I could say, yeah, practice compassion, loving kindness really help us. Even though you can't really apply it every situation, but it really help. It really, really help, right? What do you think? Yes or no? Maybe I could just ask. And then when you're saying compassion, sometimes some people take like, understand what the compassion means, like a pitiness or some mercy or something like that. That's little, it makes a little too much. It's kind of, it's not really the pity. You feel not really, compassion means like you want to free the other person or the oneself is free from that in any level of suffering, but then you really fully take responsible for that, and you have the courage to respond with that. And that has to do with we call it like a skillful means. How can you really take the responsibility? Responsibility means like act, help them when they are in need. In any situation, if anybody is in a really difficult situation, and you really, if there's a way that you could help, with the way, if there's a way that you are in the situation to do some positive change and to help that person or animals or any situation, take full responsibility, but skillfully. What does skillfully means here? That actually you have to combine with the wisdom, check with that, and what is the long-term consequences and the short-term consequences. If you do that, it could be in many different situations. Starting from individual to the community, society, and then state, and then it can apply to the country and even at the international level, really. So then, if you have to, expand that kind of mental attitude with the action, You have to be really skillful. Otherwise, sometimes, if you just, if you see that, of course, you need to release that person from this suffering and that problem. For example, you take like a person who was in prison for no any, committing crime. Sometimes happen, right? They put them in jail for without any reason. That really happens sometimes. And sometimes even they execute them. They haven't done anything. And then it evolves with like justice, and you have the legal system there. But then whether the legal system really working as legally or not, a lot of corrupt people are there too, right? So you have to have the courage to confront with them, confront with pure motivation, with the gentleness, like when you're saying like compassion, like not only you could have the, if your action is motivated by compassion, and your verbal speaking and your physical action also could play as a gentleness. You could call that also compassionate speech or compassionate physical action or compassionate writing like appealing letter from government or any organization who work for the well-being and welfare of other beings. So this is really, really critical, or I mean, what do you call it? Not really critical, but it's really important topics. And then one individual can make some differences. Why not? So if one can do, why you cannot do it? If you can do, why you cannot do, right? So we have the same mental capacities are there. It's the matter of whether you have the environment and the opportunity and the space where you could expand that. But you find, we will find, we definitely find to apply that compassionate action in everywhere without any, like it can go like without any races or nationalities or religions or groups or anything. You can really expand with that, because in everyone wish with happiness and not really wish suffering. Intentionally, nobody wants to have suffering. That's quite clear, right? If you think carefully, it's really quite clear. But even though you want to have happiness, we want to have compassionate heart or compassionate brain. I don't think so. We say compassionate brain, but a compassionate heart, right? And but we are in a way we don't know how to really act that way because of our ignorance or our unknowing, covered by this negativity within our mind stream, and that caused by the egoistic mind. Me is the most important, and then because of me, mine is the most important, and they are not that important, and we make like this division, right? Me and my group, and their group, and then those who don't have not much kind of a connection, leave them like neutral, no do anything. And then because of we have this three group, mine, me, and then nobody, like in just somewhere in the middle. And because of if somebody is causing kind of trouble or problem for those who like you, like me, and then we go to act accordingly, probably harm them, or we use a harsh word or argue with them, and that really create in philosophical tradition we said we are creating karma, and that really create like bad karma. And then those who are kind of supposed to be like our enemy, but there's no enemy us. Everybody is our friends. There's no enemy, but we are creating it, right? There's no everybody. No one is enemy. No one is our enemy. If you really listen carefully, how could you really say anybody is an enemy? As a human being, we are all like born the same way, like grew up pretty much the same way. Maybe we have a little different colors, and we are coming from different countries, and we grew up. We may have a little bit different food and dressing things. But if you think really, really carefully, everybody is the same. And so how can we really make like enemies and friends? if you really think carefully, and we say that those who harm us, they are our enemies. But sometimes, why not? Sometimes, those person, we seeing them, they are harming us, but we never know that that person really wanted to help us in a way. But we are just seeing, perceiving them, they are harming us. Because of our own kind of narrow-minded or like closeness, we think that, oh, they are doing the bad thing. It's just we have this habitual just looking externally, not really looking inside. So because of that, the whole problem, our world is like, sometimes, it's kind of disappointing, right? When you see this so many problems, like a war and conflict, it's endless, kind of keep going on and on. It's what is going on here? you know we're here like educational, in terms of education, compared to like the first, like compared to the previous century, well, kind of developed, right? And a modern education system, I mean. And then, the in terms of the material or the technology, it's far advanced out there. In the whole in the new creation or the new innovation, supposed to be eliminate the problem, right? It's supposed to be offer some comfort and supposed to be like eliminate or then minimize the problem, but it seems creating more problem. When talking about the science and technology, and you see what kind of technology you're talking. And when I was at the exchange program at the university, we had a few times in kind of a opportunity to share, because my classmate, most of my classmates are like a major in science and like physics and engineer and like that. I just happened to tell them what kind of technology you are looking for. And of course, I have a really interest in like a spiritual and science in dialogue, and this exchanging in each other, and that create more kind of better world or better future. And then when you're looking at this, some of this creation, why we're creating, animal don't do that. And then it's become like a politic and defense and whatever things they're talking. Oh, we are worried with that person and that regime, and they will, if you do not really create that kind of bomb or gun or whatever, and they will attack us and they will destroy us, la 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 la. It's just going on and on. And it was really interesting to me, and it was just being like in there. And it's not really just here in America, but all over the world. Like, we have like market in using like in so many much money to creating gun and bomb and missile, and you know animal, they attack each other because of their own survival reason. But we human being, we don't know what are really doing. I mean, we have doing, not doing it in a way, but it's happening in our world. So we share in the experience. If there's some problem going on, how can you really just isolate it, like close your mind? And we have responsible in a way. So then somehow we have to approach. How can we really approach our people? Maybe just start from grassroots level, right? From really, from individual level, and then it can really expand furthermore. So that's why I thought, what does compassion and loving kindness mean here? And can we eliminate the whole problem by ourselves? Probably not, but we can do our part. We can do our part, right? So that's why it's really, really important things to think about. What does compassion really mean for us? And for example, if somebody working in the hospital, if you just work in the hospital just for the main reason to get salary and for yourself, probably not that good. But if you look after them like with care and love and respect, that's also compassion action. And in that sense, you don't have to think any other reason. right? So, and then again, like loving, kindness, compassion, are they interchangeable or not? Probably not. And it has some connection to each other. And be kind, and what do you call? I was just thinking of how can we really structure, but if I talk about according to the literature sort of thing, and maybe it won't work. So I'm just trying to make like more kind of a easy way to understand. I'm not sure whether if we have new people here today, if they're all new or they have been coming for you. All of you are coming. Have been visiting. Some are new, but that doesn't really much matter. We are all same people. We are all same human being, and so everybody came here. I guess they wanted to listen a little bit what I'm saying, and I really know what my kind of nature is. I laugh a lot, and and I wanted to be happy, and then so everybody wanted to be happy. That's true. So you have to be really, when you think, even though we face a lot of problem and difficulties and some obstacle, if you use our mind, well, maybe it meant to happen. It's not only me. There are so many other people or other living beings also having some problem and difficulties, and they must have some cause and condition is meant to be happen. But then we have to just get it over, not really stay with that. If you're just thinking only on our own problem, then that traumatize ourselves, and then slowly we get stress, and then the stress level get bigger and bigger. What do you get? Depression, right? And then if the depressions become too high, then I guess there are people who seek kind of psychology, like a psychiatrist, and then sometimes even they use like antidepressive pills or this kind of thing is available there, but that's really temporal sort of solution. They really use it. But if we train ourselves, try to be happy, smile. We said the smile or the laugh, the genuine sort of laugh. And then if you look at His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he laugh, and if you look at it on internet, there's one internet I was looking, and then it said the genuine laughter, and they just really video of him, and he was laughing really hardly, like ha 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 ha, like, and then why are you laughing? He said, I'm expert for laughing. And try to be happy, and I wanted to share that the kind of that kind of attitude with others. He didn't really say that, but he said like, I'm the expert of laughter, or I'm expert laughter, or something like that. So, and we can get a lot of insight from that, just looking at only that short video of laughing him. You know, of course we have to be serious in some situation, but then why we have to be really always like kind of too much serious, right? If you're too serious, sometimes you make little kind of backache and then headache, or sometimes even like a hurt. So how can you really turn, like try to oneself like more gentle and laugh and share the like a positive sort of emotion with our neighbors, our families, and then try to explain that furthermore, that's really compassionate action in a way, I would say. And then in the Buddhist teaching, it teaches a lot about compassion and loving kindness, and then in more mainly you have to be put into the practice is the main thing, and how do you really put into practice. And I thought I would just I would like to share one thing. When you say compassion, it's very important for every living beings, and whether you are a believer or not, whether you, even though you against religion, compassion is needed. Loving kindness is really needed for you, for us, right? Definitely for us. especially when you're facing some problem. You have to have the courage to practice patience, and practice patience also have mental attitude motivate with the compassionate action. And if one is like a religious person, I could share that, right? And but in Madhyamika, have you heard that Madhyamika and the middle way? Have you heard? Yes. Okay. And in like traditionally, in the study that I have done for the last 26-7 years, and we study a long years with like many texts. They had to cover like many texts. But then in the text, we have this traditional way that starting at the starting point, when you do this and start the scripture study, and the author usually pay homage to Buddha or the omniscient one, or the you do have like a different like a object to take homage. But then in the Madhyamika text, and we have like a ancient Indian Nalanda master in Aryadeva. No, sorry, Chandrakirti. Chandrakirti. We call it Chandrakirti. He's actually the disciple of Nagarjuna. We call it Nagarjuna the second Buddha in a way, and who we believe that historically, like in ancient India, after Buddha went to Mahaparinirvana, and sometimes some years later, actually, the most of the Mahayana Buddhist teaching actually disappear from this world. And that's kind of belief, but it could be true. And Nagarjuna came after some time, and he really brought back all this Buddhist teaching and the Mahayana teaching into the world. And he was the main person who really revived the Mahayana Buddhist teaching in this world. And the Aryadeva was the one person, and who have written commentaries of the Madhyamika text, which is commentary of the Lord Buddha's teaching itself. And what he did, with that starting point, when he started to compose the commentary teaching, and he didn't really pay homage to the Buddha or the Bodhisattva or the solitary realizer or the hearer or gods or the demigod or no others, any other form of thing. What he did, he actually pay homage to compassion. It's a very unusual thing, but it's really significant reason out there. He made like a comparing like a how many verses? I think 4 verses. He had like a 4 verses that pay really homage to compassion. And he sees that compassion is very important. It's the seed. It's wanted to be real spiritual practitioner. You have to have the compassion, and then the compassion have like different levels of compassion there. The great compassion, and then the we call it like immeasurable compassion, and then the like a lesser sort of lesser vehicles, or what do you call it, like the lesser scope and the middle scope, yeah, fundamentals, yeah, the fundamental vehicles, and but then great compassion, which they have some differentiation in there. But anyway, and we don't want to go to the differences. Make look at the similarity rather than differences. But there's a different way. But anyway, Chandrakirti, why he did was through the homage to the the homage at the starting point of the text. Homage to compassion. How can you really come homage to compassion? And homage means like pay respect, right? To whom? And sometimes, usually, we seems like if you make a homage, you miss we miss tend like, well, we have to have some sort of idol or something out there that you want to pay compassion. I mean, sorry, pay respect or homage. But he just chose to pay compassion, but in general compassion, and then specific like 3 different types of compassion. Whether he did the homage to compassion of the Buddha or others, yes, include that. But he did like in in general, homage for the compassion, and then three different specifically. Maybe I'll just share if that does make sense or not. But if not, you can ask me, and we will have some time for question answer. Probably we can, figure out what does that mean. I found this translation in your in your at the where was that? Yeah, by the Kuan Yin's statue in the in Chenrezig Hall, and I just want to read it and then try to explain what does it really mean here. The verses that the Chandrakirti really make homage to compassion. It's really, really beautiful. Really, it covers so many things. It's really, really covers so many things. And to practice and study this text, you not necessarily have to be like take a refuge and become a Buddhist. You not necessarily have to do that. Completely not, because it's it's talking about this compassion, which is everybody really sees that something is positive and you need it. So this is really good verse. I will just want to read it. But he says here solitary realizer arise from Buddhas. Buddhas are born from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The compassionate mind and non-dual awareness, as well as Bodhisattvas, they are the cause of Bodhisattvas. That was the first verse. And then the next one, compassion alone is seen as the seed of victorious, rich harvest, as water that nourish it, and as the ripened fruit that is the source of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the start, I praise or homage to compassion. Like a water wheel in motion, migrators have no autonomy or independent or freedom. First, with the thought, say I, how the sentient beings are really, having experiencing the suffering, how they're really cycling with the suffering because of clinging I, the ego or the ignorance or the egoistic mind. They just cling first at the beginning. When you say I am the most important thing, I guess, they cling to a self, and then with that attitude, clinging with that attitude, it creates mind. It says mind. Then they become attached. Because of mind, then we get attached them, right? Attached to things. I bow to this compassion that care for migrators. He said, who the compassionate one or the compassion who really, compassion means like care for the migrators. Here these words, migrators, I guess it's really textual sort of terms. Probably good to use sentient beings. But in text, we use that migrator because there's some significant reason is there. Like a migrate, I mean, like, what do you call it? It's like cycling in a way. So how do you really cycling it? It's because of the strong clinging of I, and then me, and then we attach, and then because of that we create some negative action, and because of that we suffer. And then if someone believe in a future life and previous life, then this suffering actually we have to goes on and endlessly. We use this in the water wheel. There are 6 different kind of properties that the water wheel, how this water will really turn into the water. And in the Chandrakirti, they have used that this one. We can use car here, instead of water wheel. In the past, we do have in ancient India, we do have the water wheel. Some villages they still have it, but you can't really see because the water wheel, how that work. You have the well down there, and there's a wheel here, and then the rope actually connect. It's attached with the rope, rope, not the rope, this one, but the rope that, pull. And if you just throw that wheel in the well, without any effort, it just goes straight down to the well, down to that. And similarly, sentient beings or living being us, because of our negativities inside, and we just happen to be fall into this cycle existence or these suffering areas. That's one reason that, and that's why he used that. You just fall straight into the samsara, or you fall straight into the problem and the suffering. And then another one, he says, the wheel actually just turn like this, and you can't really make a kind of, you can't really make the which one is the starting point and which one is the ending point. It's just turning like this. You can't really find the starting point and the like the ending point. So similarly, living beings, suffering beings, or the migrator. That's why he used the migrators here. Take a rebirth, samsaric, the cycle existence, taking rebirth. Sometimes you can be dog, sometimes you can be cat, sometimes you can be animal, a human being, sometimes you can be, all different forms. That's how you really take, because if you create that karma. And that's one thing. And then, what was that? There's 6 kind of properties out there, but I can't remember everything here now. Here, you didn't really mention all of them. It's just a migrator. Okay, the first verses, it actually talk about, pay homage for the general compassion. What does it mean here, general compassion? If you debate, we study like more than 6 months for this, only for this verse. Well, I mean, these commentaries are like this, but we have only 3 or 4 verses, but the commentaries come like this. Because, you talk about, here he says, like, here and solitary realizer arise from Buddhas. And you talk about solitary, and here means like the 2 of the lower skull, we call it, like that. How, if you think about what does that mean? Here and solitary realizer arise from both Buddhas. It means like solitary. I can explain that in a way. The sarvaka in Sanskrit we call it sarvaka. It has special meanings there, and solitary realizer, they become like in a way we supposed to be like they are in the path, but how did they get that realization? Because of Buddha's teaching, with the compassionate, motivated with compassionate, and Buddha have given the teaching for them to develop that path. Or because of that, we says they are born and they are arises by the compassion, or by the Buddha. And then you can think about what does that really mean here. And Buddhas are born from bodhisattvas. It says like, when you're here, maybe what does Buddha mean? For our understanding, Buddha means like the one who have gone beyond. Or what does that mean again? Buddha means that one who have eliminated every negativities and gain all the knowledge. And then the term they use, you usually use like the omniscient one. It means like literally eliminate the stain, the mental defilement or the mental affliction and everything. That person is the Buddha. We call person or whatever, we call it the Buddha. And then how did that Buddha become? How did the Buddha really become completely free from all the defilement and all the negativities? Because of his practice, the Bodhisattva practice, the 6 paramitas, and the compassion, starting from loving kindness, compassion, and then the generosity, practice, patience, concentration, and mindfulness training. All the we have like a measure, like a 5 path or the 10 ground we call it, because of practice of these inner knowledge, and that really lead Buddha to become the fully awakened. So that's what it means here. Then the last one, there are 3 different types of compassion here. I would just try to explain that, and then we will have some question answer with that. The compassion that the translation was kind of interesting here, but anyway. In Tibetan word, we call it like Simjen Sam La Mi Benyingje, Chui La Mi Benyingje, and Mingme La Mi Benyingje. And Simjen Sam La Mi Benyingje mean, like it's like compassion mean like the object is suffering being, right? We have to check on the object and the subject, the person who is generating compassionate toward the sentient being, including yourself, and then the very entity of the compassion, which is the mental attitude that wish to free from any form of suffering, but there are 3 different levels. In Buddhist scripture we have we categorize the suffering, any form of suffering categorized in 3 suffering, 3 different types of suffering: the suffering of suffering, the changeable suffering, and then we call it the pervasive suffering. And what is the suffering of suffering? Example. Sorry, ouch. Yeah, in the text it given one example. It's quite interesting one in Lamrim text, I think. In Tibetan, it means like if someone have like a kidney stone. How painful is that, right? You can really feel that's really painful, and that's actually suffering of suffering. It's example of suffering of suffering. And then changeable suffering is actually the ordinary sensual sort of pleasure. We consider it's pleasure, it's like something really good because it's feel goods, right? And so that's changeable suffering. You feel momentarily, like a really short moment, that you feel really happy or pleasurable, or I don't know, it's kind of appealing sort of thing. But like in a few seconds, it changes into suffering. So that's why you call it suffering, like a changeable suffering. And then the third one is really interesting one. It's quite difficult to understand too. But then any form of other than these 2, but these 2 also is a pervasive suffering in a way. But then it doesn't really call it just a pervasive suffering. But we say like pervasive suffering means the basis of the next 2 suffering. What is the basis of the next 2? I mean, the suffering of suffering and changeable suffering is something that really grosser level, and we can actually realize that we can accept that and work with that. We can perceive that as a suffering really easily, right? Because it's something that it's not really a pleasurable thing, right? So that's why we consider that's really suffering. Because even dogs and cats can, have the capacity to realize that's suffering. But the pervasive suffering, only human being or the higher being can realize. Like a higher being can, how do you say, consider that like a suffering. But the basis of suffering, which is our own body, we in the text it gives them example. The aggregate that caused by the affliction, negative emotion and karma, right? Negativities and karma, that because of that, it's a base of suffering. But that's quite difficult to accept it, because it's our body. It's a human precious body. It's a precious human body. Why you're saying it's like pervasive suffering or it's a base of suffering? No, we would say that, right? Of course we are enjoying and we need to enjoy and we are having a good time here. People will say that, right? But if you think really carefully, it because we get this suffering or suffering and the changeable suffering because of the body, because of this, like if you say kind of ugliness, sometimes some people may not like it, but whether we like it or not, it's in fact a fact. It is true. If you need to open our stomach, everything is dirty. So it's the nature of suffering. It's really in the nature of suffering, right? So, but to realize that, to understand that's really the suffering, it's really difficult. And in Buddhist teaching, it's good with you have to understand the foundation, which are the Four Noble Truths, and the truth of suffering and the causes of the suffering. And then, if there's a way that you could, eliminate and get like free from that suffering, which is like liberation, we call it like liberation or cessation. And then, if there's a way, which one, and then the path. So there's a way that you could really follow with this Four Noble Truth. So these three verses are really just three verses, but it can be really big meanings that you can we can write like many kind of piles of books of that or digitize wherever you like, or maybe you could just store in our mind or in brain. So it's interesting, and it's really something profound that we can find if you study furthermore and read furthermore about this scripture, to begging, try to get some kind of support to solidify and further expand our compassion and loving kindness. And then it's really true that you have to be the more practical and apply in every situation in daily life. But then you have to be really skillful in that too, because sometimes if our motivation is really good and clear and wanted to help and wanted to be really more practical and try to help, but if you haven't really see the holistic sort of views out there, we say that sometimes good intention turns sour without really checking every situation. If you just act like that, you sometimes we end up in a little difficult situation too. So that's why the skillful means compassion that combined with skillful mean, or the wisdom, is very important in a way. So that's why Madhyamika, the Chandakirti, made homage to compassion, not just the merely compassion, but the compassion that really lead to awaken one, that really lead us to generate the genuine bodhichitta, or the altruistic mind. And to generate the altruistic mind and the bodhichitta, you have to have the compassion or the loving kindness that combine with skillful means or the wisdom. Without that, sometimes could be a little blind. So that's why I think Chandakirti really did homage for the compassion for at the really beginning of the Madhyamika itself actually emphasized more on the Buddhist view, the interdependencies and emptiness or all this stuff. But then at the beginning where he did that, and the compassion is the only one that really lead us, whether you want to have liberation or bodhicitta, bodhisattva, or solitary realizer, or the Buddhahood himself. Without compassion, there's no way that you could really develop anything else. So this is something really, really important. And then, we have to talk our own level in a way. When you're talking about Buddha, Bodhisattva, hero, and solitary realizer, these are like away from us, from me, definitely, so away from me. So then we have to be more practical. That I was kind of mentioning it earlier. If we act individual level and then expand that to the community and to the country and to the world in a way, because our world needs something. Our world, it looks like our world really needs more good people. Of course, we have wonderful people, but if you compare, maybe I don't know, maybe more. It looks like more kind of problem are occurring, and His Holiness Dalai Lama, in the past, saying the 21st century should be like a non-violent century, and the 20th or the 19th century it was been like a violent or killing or conflict, and this 21st century we should create more like a compassionate world or more like a non-violence or harmonious world. Whether it's happening or not, we don't know. It's kind of difficult to predict, right? Uncertainty. It's really unpredictable sort of things going on. But even though we can't really get direct kind of involvement to solve this big problem, but we can act according our own way and our own level, and we have to be happy with that, and we have to be in. We just enjoy what we are doing. That's enough too. If we're fortunate, we are really. I think compared to some others, we are really really fortunate. I think really we have been living really harmonious community, and we have the opportunity to share some valuable thing instead rather than talking about how we to how do we defend that, how we really kill that people, or what sort of thing will happen if we end up in that situation. What our life will be? It will be terrible, right? So we are really really lucky that we have met some wonderful teaching, whatever teaching we accept, any like different major like religious teaching, it offer us they all offer us try to be good people, right? I guess not any religion have any teaching that you have to be rough and you have to kill and you have to be strong or you have to be angry, you have to be hatred. Nobody will encourage that. Definitely they're not. But then they just use when they because of their own closeness, and they just use the name of the religion or the country to make problem increase, escalate that. It's very fortunate. I mean, sorry, unfortunate and unfortunate things happening. And if you look at the history, earlier you were sharing that history about it. That's quite true in everywhere. So you have to be more responsible if you want to create a better world. So then, compassion, it's really important things here now. And it's, I want to take more caution here, I think. If you have any question, it will be better. I know that we can more make a discussion. If you have any question, we have one more than one. I mean, 1 hour still. If you have any question, it will be more beneficial.
So in a lot of teachings, I've seen that it's the path they say is method and wisdom, the
Yes.
two wings of a bird. And sometimes I've seen method they say compassion and wisdom, and sometimes bodhichitta and wisdom. But then that means that bodhichitta is the same as compassion, and I haven't. What I'm understanding is that it is not the same. Could you say a few things about the differences between bodhicitta and compassion and their relationship,
Okay.
and why they would you say bodhicitta and wisdom or compassion and wisdom are the
Okay.
two wings of the bird?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, here. No, compassion. Okay, compassion and bodhicitta is different, but the any form of practice or the path we call it categorizes in like a compassion and wisdom. Oh, no, sorry, method path and the wisdom path. But then compassion and bodhicitta included in in the category of a method path. So bodhicitta means altruistic mind or a wish to get a fully enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. That's what it defined. And to generate the genuine altruistic mind or the bodhichitta, you have to have develop compassion at first. The great compassion, like the genuine compassion. Without cultivating, without generating within your mind the great compassion, there's no way that we could generate the true, altruistic mind or the bodhichitta. And then to generate the great compassion, the genuine compassion, you have to generate loving kindness before. So there is a sequence, it goes there. And according to the Maitreya Buddhas, in the, what is that, the ornament of the, what was that? Yeah, ornament of clear realization. This text, you have two lineage. How do you generate bodhicitta? There are two lineage in there. According to like a Maitreya Buddha to Asanga, and that's a method lineage, we call it. And then like a Manjushri and Nagarjuna, and then Chandakirti lineage, we call it the wisdom lineage. So according to the method lineage, from coming from Maitreya Buddha to Asanga, and then the lineage master there are 7 different steps. How could you really generate the genuine bodhicitta? It starts with the first one. In Tibetan we say Simjen Tamche Marsheba, like to realize that all sentient beings once your mother or the father or the sister. In the text you use like that has been once your mothers. But if they have been your mothers, of course they have been your father or sister as well. So that's an example. You have to realize that first. That's the first step. And then because of they have been your mothers, you have their carers. She really grew up us, she was the one who cared and give us the whole life, right? So because of that, the next one is Marshaba. Then consider, like, what is that? Marshaba, Tintemba, recalling the kindness of her. That's the second one, Marshaba, Tintemba. And then just recalling the kindness is not enough, so you want to repay the kindness and generate that mental attitude and act accordingly. The third one is repaying the kindness. And then the fourth one is Yungi Chamba, means look all sentient beings as a Yidongwa, means like something that appealing to you, not in the sense of like attachment, but in the sense of that everyone is equal as mothers, has been a mothers. That's the fourth one, Yungi Chamba. And then the fifth one is compassion. So the first 4, you have to go step by step. To generate the fifth one, which is compassion, you have to consider that all sentient beings have been once mothers, and then recalling the mother's kindness, and then repaying their kindness, and then looking every living beings as equal as your mothers. That's the fourth one, Yungi Chamba. And then the fifth one is Nyingje. In Tibetan call it the Nyingje, which means compassion. And then the sixth one is Nyingje, mean like the compassion mean like you wish the living being, the suffering being, free from suffering. It means like you wish to free it, right? But doesn't take the response. I want to free that person, that from them. I mean, I want to take the responsibility to free them from that suffering. When you have generated compassion, you just wish to free them. And then we need the sixth one, which is, we call it Laksam. I guess, what is you call, or is that? Great resolve, we call it. So it means like taking responsibility, and I'm going to free them. That kind of mental attitude is the sixth one. And then that leads you to generate the true bodhicitta or the altruistic mind. So has to go like, we have to practice that way. So when we meditate, probably if you do that, all sentient being once been mother, and how could that possible? Then another whole philosophical things come up there. So even though they haven't been once your mother, but you can live just this lifetime. Just this lifetime we can think about our mothers, our fathers, our sister, our teachers, and all that you have connected with those. Everyone is interconnectedness, and we the very survival of ourself is connected to others. So you can think that everyone has been kind to me, like same as my mom. So even though we can't really think about the previous life or the future life, but you could, you could like cultivate kind of mental attitude that everyone that surrounding us, whether it's directly or indirectly, we are connected and we have supported each other in a way. And without depending on each other, there's no way that you could survive. You could think about that way too. So this is kind of thing, compassion and bodhicitta is different. This is the way that you cultivate or then generate. Did you answer or not? Okay, thank you. Any other question? You could ask anything, and if I know the answer, I will try to answer for you. If not, I will get help from Venerable Children or here. Why not? We are all we are all connected to each other.
You've mentioned about these three types of compassion, and
Oh,
I wonder if you could explain the Tibetan terms a little
okay.
bit. I'm kind of remembering the second was, you said, qualified by impermanence. Third was qualified by emptiness.
Right. Okay.
But you talked about them having a subject and an object, and
Oh,
is this whole thing like been
okay.
kind of like made into an outline?
Okay. Okay.
Just a
Okay.
little bit.
I think I just confused you, I think. Yeah, right. The three different types of compassion here that Chandra have mentioned here. It says like Semjen Samlamik being means a compassion that generate by thinking of the different levels of the different kind of suffering that sentient beings are experiencing. It just by thinking of that, and he or she generate compassion. That we call it like a compassion. Here it says a merely compassion, merely like a objected to the sentient beings. But the translation, I'm not sure what is it. Regarding suffering, yeah, regarding suffering sentient beings. And then the second one, which is Chulami Pinyingji in Tibetan. In Tibetan, first one is Simjin Samlamik Pinyingji. And then the third one, and the second one is Chulami Pinyingji, which means compassion. You have generated compassion that by thinking of the sentient being who are like constantly suffering, experiencing suffering, because of by nature they are impermanent, but because of the mental kind of imprints in the previous life or whatever, clinging as a permanent. So just by thinking of, by realizing that, in nature they are impermanent, combined with the realization of emptiness. I'm sorry, impermanence. That's the wisdom part. So that's actually the second one. And then the third one is Mingmela Bimingiji in Tibetan. Objective compassion is kind of funny here. Yeah, that translates like that. It doesn't really give the whole meaning here. Anyway, let me just try to explain what does it mean. It means and wisdom, like the wisdom that realize the sentient beings that in nature it's empty from inherent existence, but because of the clinging ego mind, they are really suffering. Because of that, lead us experience the suffering. By thinking of that, the person who have realized that, like emptiness in a way, in short, combined with the empty, realizing the sentient being as a empty from inherent existence, the combination with that kind of a compassion, we call it mingmel badinje. So, but the compassion itself is the very nature of the compassion itself is wish to free from suffering. It has to be there, but then what do you call it? Combine is a good word, right? With a combination of understanding emptiness, with a combination of understanding of impermanence. So that's the union. I think that's pretty good kind of word there, right? Union with the understanding. Combination is better. Okay, right.
I think you mentioned that compassion and loving kindness are a little bit different. In what ways can you tell us, like, in what ways are they different and in what ways are they the same?
Uh-huh. Right. Compassion and loving kindness, right? Loving kindness, love here, in Tibetan word, love, you mean sewa. If you that translate into sewa means compassion in a way. Sewa, But then in loving, it doesn't really mean, they have so many different types of loving there, right? But the attitude that loving means like caring. But compassion also caring in a way. But it's a different mental, I think it's a different mental attitude. Mental attitude, but the different way that you care each other. Compassion is something that the other person or the oneself free from any kind of suffering, and then loving. The term in the Tibetan words is pretty much similar, but it's different there, right? How can you say that? It's kind of tough there. But then in talking about, when you're talking about the thinking about this, free from suffering. Oh no, that's a different one. That's right. Right. And then caring, you said caring, right? Caring, you could have like care, like mentally you feel we should care, and then also you could, like physically or verbally, you could really care them. Care means like take care of them. It's kind of common. Care yourself and care the others, right? If they need in any help or anything, and I really care them means like I concern them or us. You place that in the concern. If they are having trouble, or even though they are not having trouble, you really keep kind of close connection or close kind of heart, warm-hearted, sharing that kind of experience with that, caring in a way that sense we could understand that way. Possibly that could be the thing, but there are so many different situations have then there are so many different level and different way that you have that loving kindness compassion, and then true love and true compassion is really caring. Caring means like in the long run rather than like very short momentary sort of needs. So that has to have to like in the combination of wisdom, thinking about if you do that, what will the result in the short-term result and the long-term result. And as a human being, usually better to think about the long-term consequences would considered to be the most important than the short-term.
I just want to know if I really understood the difference between loving kindness and compassion. Loving kindness is that you care, you love the people and all that, and you wish them happiness, but still in samsara. You never have the mind, there's something else. Compassion, if you have compassion, you want them to be free of suffering, which is deeper. The loving kindness, I care, but there's still attachment. There's no.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so in real love, there's no attachment, and then also with genuine love, you want them to have the highest happiness, which comes from liberation and awakening. So both love and compassion can wish people to go way beyond samsara.
Yeah, it doesn't have to mix with the attachment there.
If I can add one other thing,
Yeah.
that I think sometimes where we get confused with saying loving kindness is in the Theravada tradition, they often translate Maitri or Metta as loving kindness.
Chamba.
And there, in that tradition, they often define it as an attitude of friendship or an attitude of just openness and
Exactly.
general caring as kind of your default method for being with others.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
So
metta.
it's a slightly different meaning in from that tradition in a particular circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Metta means chamba. Chamba means loving kindness. In like it's in a sense of friendship. That's really true. But it both doesn't have mixed with attachment here, right? Loving kindness, compassion, all these three doesn't really mix with it. But the ordinary people they may have, but that if you mix up the attachment, it doesn't really become the true compassion or the true loving kindness. It's mixed up with the kind of negativities there. So you have to like a pure one. Try to generate the pure one in a way. At the beginning, it's of course, it's quite difficult to generate that true one. But you have to try. Try. If you try like 100 times, then it will happen. Yes.
I want to respond to your question. It made me think of something that I found really helpful because we say the four immeasurables and we think about the four immeasurables. But the thing I think that really opened me to a better understanding of it was not just wishing someone to have happiness or to be free of suffering, but to wish them to have the causes of happiness and the causes of suffering. Because if I just think about maybe they have happiness, my mind might not go to something quite expansive. It might be quite temporary. But when I think about what are the causes of happiness, the mind has to think about really karma, and it has to take a much bigger view on things. And so just from a practical level, I find that to be quite helpful when I do that prayer, to really focus on the causes, because they are going to be more long-term and they're going to be more expansive. Because what are the causes of happiness? If you, as a Buddhist, if you ask a lot of Buddhists, they actually can't tell you that it's virtue. They won't know the answer to that question.
That's true.
So it's to think about the causes is quite helpful to me.
Right. What are the causes of happiness? Generate mental positive attitude, like loving kindness, compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, open-minded, in practice, according to in ethical conduct. These are the causes to bring us happiness. I guess that's what it is, right? Will you agree or not? What are the causes of happiness? I mean, there are so many different levels of happiness. That's true, but in the sense of ordinary level like us, even though we are not really in full kind of higher sort of realization that we have in generate, but there's a certain level that you can generate as a happiness, right? If you have more tolerance, more understanding, more kind of loving kindness, more patient, more understanding, open-minded, if you keep continually repeatedly try to generate within yourself, that lead us happier. So the main purpose, and whatever things that we are doing, we want to do with happiness, then what are the causes? And if you just identify these are the causes, and if you just act accordingly, that bring us better sort of happiness. And then we say everlasting happiness, right? And there's a way that if you continually practice that, that will definitely lead us to everlasting happiness one day. And the same, take it as similar, like an example. At the beginning, when the little child, they don't know how to read and write, right? And then the teacher and the parent, they teach them how to read and write and go like a kindergarten school and then like a elementary school and high school, and then it will go like a college and degree, I mean college and university. Then the ignorance or the unknowing sort of thing at the beginning it diminish and the person become like educated, right? Very similar way that if you identify these are qualities that lead us in happiness, and if you practice accordingly, that will lead us to happiness.
His Holiness often says to, not, and he talks mostly to non-Buddhist audiences, I think, when he's saying that his religion is the religion of kindness. So I'm wondering if the audience that he's speaking to being non-Buddhists, he's not really talking about our definition of loving kindness, but perhaps more just friendship in that particular venue. Is that what he's referring to when he says his religion is a religion of kindness?
That's true. Yeah, I think what His Holiness meant, my religion is kindness. He says like, I do not need like big temple or stupa or something like that. That's not really necessary, but in like very minor thing. But my religion is kindness, which means whether you are Buddhist or non-Buddhist, kindness, everybody, it universal kind of values that he means. And if you look at his website where he said like his main commitment, he have like 3 main commitments. The first commitment that he really take and promote in all over the world is like promoting human values. What are the human values here? Loving, kindness, compassion, tolerance, understanding, and these are like human values. And he wanted to really promote that within, whether Buddhist or non-Buddhist or no matter who you are. These are universal values, and he really wanted to promote that. That's actually his first commitment. He's not really promoting Buddhism. Never ever encourage. He never ever encouraged people to convert into Buddhism. Never ever he to say that. I mean, if they are individual, they choose to, like taking refuge and wanted to become a Buddhist, then you can't really prevent them, and you can't really, turn down them. That's kind of rough, right? But if the individual wanted to be Buddhist practitioner, then of course you have to welcome them. But we, not only His Holiness, but all different lamas, I guess. And Buddhism in general, you never encourage people to convert in different religion. His Holiness always, when he travel around the world, like the West, like Europe, America, wherever he goes, he always encourage people to stay with your own religion if you are a religious person, but just practice the essence of your own religion. And if you want to have some kind of some remedy, some spicy from others, make them do food delicious. You can learn different philosophy. Why not, right? As you can get some kind of idea. You can read the Buddhist teaching or Hinduism or Christianism, whatever work for you to make your religion stronger or like more useful or more kind of workable. Some people say like, oh, Christianity doesn't work for me. That kind of statement is no good. I think I saw internet, a few people are saying kind of a nasty sort of thing on the internet. That's not really good. In any religion they provide, and if people are taking the name of the religion and acting like negatively, they are not religious person. They are not religious people, right? I think they are not religious people. So in your question about the loving kindness, compassion, which are whether Buddhist or non-Buddhist, it's values, right? I think it's the values for all. Whether if there are anybody who do not agree with that, we can discuss and try to share our experience. Loving kindness, compassion. What he always says that my religion is very simple. My religion's kindness means to be kind for all, not include oneself. So when you be kind, nobody will hate you. If you be really kindness person, then we may have more friends and more loving people around you. So that's kind of common. It's common understanding in a way.
You've mentioned your interest in the dialogue between science and spirituality. Could you talk about why you have an interest there and why you think it's important?
Oh, okay. Why I have interest in there? Because it's the education, the scientists these days. There are a number of scientists who are taking a special interest in spiritual path. Not necessarily Buddhist practice, but all form of different spiritual practice. Contemplate, yeah, they call it the contemplative practice. And there are the number of scientists in America and Europe are increasing, taking this interest. But then from the Tibetan monastic side, we have very rare people. we don't have many resources people right now. The problem is language is the problem. So there are few, like in the monastic communities, we have studied the Buddhist philosophy for a long time, and then at the monastery we don't have much access to learn language like in the English language or different languages. There are very few people who can speak English or other languages, and there's a language barrier there. So if you want to have like a constructive dialogue with the scientists, that way you could share the contemplative, it's kind of difficult, contemplative practice with the scientists. And both sides have, if you have like similar numbers who take interest and make more productive dialogue, we need people. So I see that in being in Dharamsala for many time and looking at this dialogue is happening for many years, like over 30 years, I think 31 or 2 now. And in Tibetan monastic, we have very few people who really engage in that. I think I can number like 3, 4, 5. And from the scientists, there are like 100 or maybe more than 1,000 in a way. Like look at the Mind and Life Institute website, and they're doing a wonderful job in like really. They have been doing really great, but then from the monastic side, really small numbers are there. And I thought, why this is happening here? And then I thought, I think we should take more interest in that. So that's how I got the interest, and that's really opened us to, if you know the language and if you have some kind of understanding of what the scientific point of view and then the philosophical point of view, and that make us to exchange more richer, more productive, and more livelihood in the future. So that was kind of that's how it come to my mind, and that's why I got the interest in there.
Geshe, what were some challenges that came up for you when you were working towards the Geshe degree, and how did you keep your mind happy?
What were the challenges? Well, there were small challenges were there. I guess not really that major, but one challenges was like during the last 4 years. Maybe I'll just explain a little bit how. I mean, actually, Venerable shouldn't already explain. Before entering into the 4 years Geshe examination, I had to study like before 17, 18 years at the nunnery, and it went pretty well. And at the same time, study and working for the nunnery, there was a little challenge. But that's good experience. But then at that time, I have our teachers are there, and they are really in good health to teach, and whenever they have time and share with us. And then when I was taking the Geshe examination for the 4 years, like since 2013 to 16, and there was a few years kind of gap there, and I forgot some because I finished the requirements sort of study in 2007 or 8, and then a few years, didn't really revise the text, and then okay, here when the Geshe examination board was set up and the curriculum and the duration of the time it was already came out, oh, now I have to prepare, and I need some help from some teachers. And then my teacher, the main teachers who have little health problem, and he's already old in a way, like 82, 81. And even though he wanted to teach and help, but his health is really poor. So I have to find someone else to help. And then study philosophy and the Dharma, you have to have some good karmic connection with the teachers. Sometimes even though the Geshe or whoever considered to be really kind of well-known or renowned, but does it really help me in a way? I don't know. Maybe there's no really connection in there. Even though they have like memorized like in many numbers of volumes, to me, it doesn't really stay in my mind. And I have to be just with around my teachers. I have like 2, 3 teachers, and I have to be there. So then that was a little challenging. That was a little challenging. So then I had to try. I just go for in like 2 years. I spent my time the preparation of an exam in South India in Mongot, and where I have some Geshes who helped me. So I went away from the nunnery. This was a really little challenge, I think. It's not really the major thing. So I have friends there who could help in a way. So that was a little challenge there. It's a good experience. I consider that's not really the major problem, but I guess I didn't have the good karmic connection with some of the teachers who are at the nunnery. I mean, I've been in McLeodganj in the Upper Dharamsala and study with the teachers that since 1991 until I completed whole text, and then the next 4-year examination. And then we have like the senior nun, we call it the senior nuns and the junior nun. And my batch is the senior nun who have from the start, the founding nunnery group. So we have 16 of us. And then the junior one they came in 93, like 5 years later. And I didn't have classes with our abbots. Then the present abbot is wonderful, but he's also old age, 80 somewhere. He can't really help in the position too. He has a little diabetes problem as well. So then, okay, I have to go somewhere else to find my preparation done. So it worked out well. So I'm happy today that I have done it. Thank you. So I've been really enjoying for the last 4 days here, and really quiet and wonderful. It's a place where you could do practice and be quiet, and but not only quiet, but you are doing a lot of wonderful service for the communities. And I really thank you so much for being me here, inviting me here, and I'm looking forward to visit one day in the future too. So thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for giving me the time to share, even though I don't have much to share. But if you stay a little longer time, probably you can share a little bit some more, and you can make some preparation as well. Thank you so much.